The first light of dawn creeps over Silver Ridge Cemetery, painting the tombstones in pale gold. A German shepherd named Axel stands alone in the mist, his paws caked with mud, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. For 3 months straight, every single morning, he has run here, straight to the grave marked Billy Rose Miller, forever 8-8, and then he digs. Not the playful digging of a bored dog, but something desperate, determined, as if he could claw his way through the earth itself. Rain soaks his fur. Snow piles around him. It doesn't matter. He won't stop. At first, people thought it was just grief. Dogs mourn after all. But then the other dogs came, a black lab from down the street, a scruffy terrier from the next block over, until 10 of them gathered at the same grave, all digging in eerie silence. No barking, no growling, just paws moving in unison, like they were following some silent command. The sheriff watches from a distance, his gut twisting. Dogs don't do this. They don't organize. They don't obsess. And then one morning, the grave starts to bleed dirt. When the police finally dig it up, the truth is worse than anyone imagined. The casket is empty. No teddy bear, no books, no bracelet Lily's mother swore she buried with her. Just smooth satin, untouched. Axel doesn't jump inside. He sits back, lifts his muzzle to the sky, and lets out a howl so raw, so human, it chills the bones of everyone who hears it. Because this was never just a grave. It was a lie. The morning mist clung to Silver Ridge Cemetery like a ghost refusing to leave. Every day at dawn, Axel the German shepherd arrived like clockwork, paws caked in mud, fur damp with dew, eyes locked on one grave. Lily Rose Miller's grave. The townsfolk whispered about it over coffee. A dog still digging? They'd ask. But this wasn't just digging. This was an obsession. Axel didn't scratch at the dirt like a bored pet. He tore at it, claws raking deep grooves into the earth, his breath coming in ragged bursts. Rain turned the soil to sludge. Frost made it hard as stone. Didn't matter. He kept coming. Then something even stranger happened. Other dogs started joining him. A neighbor's golden retriever, the stray mutt from the gas station. Soon nearly a dozen dogs gathered at that grave every morning, all digging in eerie silence. No barking, no playing, just work. Sheriff Ben Walker noticed. He'd been a cop long enough to know when something wasn't right. Dogs don't organize. They don't hold funerals. And they sure as hell don't dig up the same patch of dirt for months unless they're trying to tell you something. The caretaker, Frank Hollis, was fed up. "And I fill that hole every damn afternoon," he grumbled, "and every morning it's back." Then came the day the grave bled dirt. It happened after a heavy rain. The water pooled in the fresh-dug hole, turning the soil dark. But when Axel and his pack dug again, the water swirled with something else, streaks of reddish-brown, like the earth itself was bleeding. That's when Walker made the call. "And we're opening that casket." And the town held its breath as the shovels bit into the ground. Lily had been gone 6 months, lost in a tragic drowning at Maple Creek Lake. At least that's what everyone believed. The witness, Tyler Kane, swore he saw her go under. But there'd been no body, just an empty casket buried with her favorite teddy bear and a handmade bracelet. The diggers hit wood. The crowd leaned in. The coffin lid creaked open, empty. No teddy bear, no bracelet, just pristine white satin untouched. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Emily Miller, Lily's mother, collapsed into her husband's arms. Axel didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the hole, his ears twitching at some sound only he could hear. Then he lifted his snout and howled, a sound so full of sorrow it made grown men shiver, because Axel had known all along. Lily wasn't in that grave, and if she wasn't there, where was she? The morning air hung heavy as Sheriff Walker's team began digging. Shovels bit into damp earth, each thud echoing through the silent crowd that had gathered at Silver Ridge Cemetery. Axel sat rigid nearby, his golden eyes never leaving the growing hole. His paws twitched as if he wanted to jump in and help. The German shepherd hadn't eaten in 2 days, too focused on this moment. When the first shovel struck wood, Emily Miller's knees buckled. Her husband Jacob caught her, his own hands shaking. 6 months. 6 months they'd believed their little girl lay beneath this marble headstone. 6 months of grief, of nightmares, of Axel's relentless digging that they'd mistaken for canine mourning. The coffin came up easier than expected, too light. Walker exchanged a glance with his deputy before prying open the lid. The hinges groaned like a wounded animal. Then, silence, complete, deafening silence. The casket was empty, not just empty of a body, empty of everything. The teddy bear Emily had placed inside, gone. The storybooks Lily loved, missing. The plastic bead bracelet with Lily's name that her tiny hands had made, nowhere to be seen. The white satin lining looked pristine, untouched, untarnished, as if no one had ever closed the lid on a single memory. Emily's scream shattered the morning quiet. "Where is she?" Her voice tore at the air. "Where's my daughter?" Jacob collapsed to his knees, fingers digging into the fresh dirt as if he could pull the truth from the ground itself. Axel didn't move toward the empty box. Instead, he turned his massive head toward the woods beyond the cemetery, his nose quivering. Then he threw back his head and howled, a sound so full of anguish and knowing that several people in the crowd burst into tears. It wasn't the sound of a confused animal. It was the sound of a creature that had been trying to tell them something for months. Sheriff Walker's face went pale. He'd signed the death certificate himself after Dr. Collins assured him drowning victims sometimes weren't recovered. But this was something else entirely. His radio crackled as he called it in. "We've got a situation at the cemetery. Possible abduction. Get forensics out here now." In the chaos, no one noticed Axel slip away. The dog moved with purpose through the tombstones, stopping only once to look back at the grieving parents. Then he vanished into the trees, heading toward the old boathouse at Maple Creek Lake, the place he'd tried to lead them the day Lily disappeared. The place where the water wasn't nearly as deep as everyone believed. The place where the real story began. The old boathouse at Maple Creek Lake had been abandoned for years. Its wooden planks sagged under the weight of neglect, the roof patched with moss and rot. But Axel knew this place. He tried to lead them here the day Lily disappeared, pulling at his leash, barking wildly, but everyone had been too focused on the water. Now, with the empty casket confirming his worst fears, he bolted straight for it, Sheriff Walker and Jacob Miller struggling to keep up. The door hung crooked on its hinges, the lock rusted shut. Walker kicked it open, the sound echoing across the silent lake. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mildew and something sharper, bleach. The floor was littered with cigarette butts and muddy footprints, and in the corner, half hidden under a tarp, was a trapdoor. Axel was already scratching at it, his claws splintering the wood. Jacob yanked it open, revealing a set of rickety stairs descending into darkness. The beam of Walker's flashlight cut through the shadows, illuminating a scene that made his blood run cold. A single chair, a table with a lantern, and along the walls, rows of boxes, each labeled with dates and initials. Walker pulled one open. Inside were children's belongings, a hair ribbon, a stuffed rabbit, a tiny sneaker. Another box held Polaroids, their edges curled with age. The sheriff's hands shook as he lifted one to the light. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, sitting on a cot. The date scrawled on the back matched a missing child case from 3 years ago. But it was the last box that made Jacob collapse. Taped to the inside was Lily's bracelet, the one they'd buried in her casket. Beneath it, a shipping log with coordinates and times, and at the very bottom, a single Polaroid. Lily, alive. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but her eyes, those were unmistakable. She was holding up 5 fingers to the camera, her mouth set in a determined line. The date on the back was from just 2 weeks ago. Axel let out a low whine, nosing at the photo. Then he turned and bolted up the stairs, his bark shattering the stillness of the lake, because Lily wasn't here anymore, but the trail wasn't cold, and Axel wasn't done digging. The abandoned farmhouse stood at the end of a dirt road, its white paint peeling under the afternoon sun. Sheriff Walker's radio crackled as the FBI team moved into position. Thermal imaging showed heat signatures inside. 8 children, 3 adults, and in the attic, a single figure, small and still. Axel strained against his leash, his entire body vibrating with urgency. Jacob Miller's hands shook as he gripped the dog's harness. "If she's in there," his voice broke. Walker nodded. No more waiting. The raid happened in seconds, shouted commands, splintering wood, the thud of boots on stairs. Then, a sound that cut through the chaos like a knife. A child's voice, weak but clear, calling from the attic, "Daddy?" Jacob didn't remember running up the stairs. He didn't feel the nails tearing at his clothes as he shoved through the narrow doorway. All he saw was the tiny figure curled on a cot beneath the slanted roof, her brown hair chopped short, her arms wrapped around her knees. Lily looked up. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then her face crumpled. "You found me," she whispered. The world stopped. Jacob fell to his knees as Lily launched herself into his arms, her small hands clutching his shirt like she'd never let go. She smelled like dust and cheap soap, but she was warm, alive. Axel shoved his nose between them, whining as Lily buried her fingers in his fur. "I told him where I was," she murmured against Jacob's neck. "Every night in my head I told him." Downstairs, agents were securing the scene. The other children, hollow-eyed and silent, were being wrapped in blankets. But in that attic, time stretched thin and golden. Emily burst through the door, her scream of relief echoing off the rafters as she crushed Lily against her chest. Later, they'd learned the full horror, the network, the fake adoptions, the doctor who'd signed death certificates for children who were still breathing. But now, as Axel leaned against Lily's legs, his mission finally complete, only one thing mattered. She was coming home. The screen fades in on Axel lying in a patch of sunlight on the Miller family porch, his fur warm and golden. His chest rises and falls steadily, his paws twitching slightly as he dreams. Nearby, Lily's laughter floats through the screen door as she practices cartwheels in the grass. It's an ordinary afternoon, the kind of moment that would have been impossible just months ago. Because here's the truth they all learned the hard way. Axel never needed case files or evidence or logic. He didn't care about witness statements or police reports. All he knew was that Lily was out there, somewhere beyond that empty grave, beyond the lies, beyond every adult who'd given up. And so he dug and dug and dug. The camera pans to the medal hanging by the front door, the state's highest honor for animal bravery. But Axel doesn't wear it often. He's too busy being a dog. Too busy nudging Lily's hand when she has nightmares, or stealing her socks just to make her laugh, or lying across her feet while she does homework like a living, breathing, weighted blanket. Sheriff Walker visits sometimes, always bringing a new chew toy. Still can't figure out how he knew, he'll say, scratching behind Axel's ears. Lily just smiles her secret smile. She remembers the attic, remembers how, even in the darkest moments, she'd close her eyes and picture Axel's face. How she'd whisper to him in her mind, "Ain't by the red barn. There's a crooked tree. Come find me." And somehow, some impossible magical way, he had. The screen cuts to slow motion. Axel sprinting across the backyard, Lily running ahead with a stick. Her hair flies behind her, longer now, almost covering the scar on her neck where the tracking chip used to be. Axel's tongue lolls happily, his limp barely noticeable anymore. He leaps, freeze frame. Now it's your turn to join the conversation. Did Axel's incredible discovery give you chills like it did for us? Tell us in the comments, what's the most surprising thing your pet has ever found? A hidden treasure? We want to hear your amazing pet stories. And if you believe every heroic dog like Axel deserves recognition, smash that like button. Let's see how many people agree. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because you never know when the next unbelievable true story will land on our channel. After all, the world is full of everyday heroes, and some of them walk on 4 paws.